A government hires a man to guard a woman. He's not allowed to tell her who's paying him. She's not allowed to know she's being watched. And somewhere between the lying and the protecting, both of them stop pretending it's just a job. She's standing in a church. Her husband just dropped to the floor a foot away from her, blood spreading under his collar. And the first thing she does isn't scream, it's calculate. What kind of woman does that? Seo Moon-ju used to be one of Korea's most respected ambassadors at the UN. She negotiated with world leaders for a living. Then one day she walked away from all of it, quietly, no explanation, to support her husband's run for president. Everyone assumed it was love. Nobody asked what she gave up to do it. Yang Junik is the opposition candidate, running on a platform nobody wants to touch, reunification with the North. Outside the church where he's about to speak, hundreds of protesters are calling him a traitor. He doesn't look worried. Moon-ju has been watching him for weeks and she knows better. Extra security he didn't explain. Phone calls he ends the second she walks in. A sketch of a squirrel he won't talk about. Before they walk in, he loops a cross necklace around her neck. She asks if something's wrong. He doesn't answer. Inside, a man with a camera is filming from the balcony. Not press. She clocks him anyway, old habit from her diplomat days. She doesn't know his name yet. It's Baek Sano. Midway through the service, a soldier steps out of the crowd. He looks at Junik and says one sentence, "You betrayed us." Then he fires. Moon-ju throws herself in front of her husband. Sanho drops from the balcony and takes the shooter down before he can fire again. It doesn't matter. Junik is already bleeding out on the floor, his wife's cross still in his fist. The shooter, a sergeant named Kim Yong-jun, swallows a cyanide pill before anyone can ask him a single question. Junik dies at the hospital. If you just lost the person you built your entire public identity around, in front of cameras, in front of a crowd that hated him 5 minutes earlier, what's the first thing you'd actually feel? Grief, or the sudden cold awareness that everyone is now watching how you grieve? The Jang family arrives within hours. They own Aziam Shipping, one of the largest logistics companies in the country. And their first conversation in the hospital waiting room isn't about Junik. It's about the will. Every account, every property, every share, all of it now legally belongs to Moon-ju, a woman with no blood relation to this family, no name in their history. Junik's grandmother calls her a gold digger to her face. His mother, Im Oksan, accuses her of orchestrating the assassination to inherit faster. Junik's younger brother, Junsang, sees an opening. He's a prosecutor. Clean image, political ambition. He announces he'll run for president in his brother's place. His mother shuts him down on the spot. A grieving widow polls better than a grieving brother. That's the whole argument. Moon-ju listens to all of it without raising her voice. Then she says she doesn't want any of it. She'll donate the entire inheritance and leave the country. The room erupts, not because they're relieved, but because a public donation locks the assets out of their reach permanently. Before she walks out, she drops one more detail. The family house isn't theirs either. She bought it 10 days ago. It's hers. She's not actually leaving the country. She never was. She's running for president herself. That night, across the city, a man we now know as Sanho gets a call. A client, identity withheld, wants to hire him as Moon-ju's bodyguard on one condition. She can never know who's actually paying him. He has to let her believe she found him on her own. Sanho has spent his career as one of the most efficient mercenaries on the market, ex-Valkyrie since 2007, no fixed nationality, no fixed name. He turns the job down. Then he goes to see her anyway, to return the necklace her husband died holding. Moon-ju, for her part, goes to the police station to find out who pulled the trigger. What she gets back is almost nothing. Kim Yong-jun, opposed to reunification, acted alone, no documented ties to anyone. She asks about the stranger who took him down. Same answer. Nobody knows who he is. Different names in different countries. No fixed identity. She tracks down the church where Junik died and meets Father Inbo, the priest. He tells her something she didn't know. Junik came to confess 2 weeks before he was shot. She doesn't push for details. She just asks to meet the man who saved her husband's life. What she doesn't know is that the man she's asking about is standing close enough to hear every word. Sanho meets her outside, hands her the necklace. Within minutes, a car starts tailing them. He pulls her into the forest to lose the tail, tells her to close her eyes and reopen them. a trick to force her vision to adjust to the dark, and takes down the men following her without raising his voice. She asks him what the shooter said right before he died. Sanho heard it clearly. "I killed the spy." If Kim Yong-jun wasn't insane, and she's certain he wasn't, that means somebody believed her husband was a spy, and somebody wanted him dead for it. 2 months before any of this happened, an assistant secretary of state named Anderson Miller, Korean-American, sidelined by his own government for being too sympathetic, received intelligence from 3 North Korean defectors describing a massive nuclear submarine. His superiors believed it. They started preparing a preemptive strike. Anderson didn't believe it added up, and he couldn't get anyone to listen. So he wrote everything down, hid the letter inside a pen, and had it smuggled to the one person outside the system he still trusted, his old friend Junik. He told him to burn it the moment he'd read it. Junik never burned it. He gave it to Father Inbo instead, planning to make it public during Mass, the same Mass where he was shot. When Munju and Sanho go back to find the priest, he's already dead, poisoned, a professional's method. But Father Inbo had prepared for this, a wine bottle in the cellar, engraved with Sanho's name, hiding both the letter and a satellite photo of the submarine. An armed man breaks in looking for the same thing. Sanho fights him hand-to-hand and nearly gets answers, but the man escapes, leaving behind one cryptic phrase, "a whale, in a distant sea." They get out through a tunnel hidden beneath the church, a literal, physical leftover from a divided peninsula, built to connect what politics keeps tearing apart. Munju takes the letter straight to President Choi Kyung-sin, someone she's known for years. The president reads it in the back of her car. Then she lights a cigarette and burns it. She tells Munju this needs to be handled with diplomacy, not headlines, that she intends to use the crisis to get closer to Washington, and she tells Munju to leave the country. Staying, she says, is a death sentence. Munju gets out of the car without arguing. She's done asking people in power for help. Sanho sails for China, trying to pull his grandmother out before the border closes for good, the last family he has left. He pays a smuggler to get across. It doesn't work. Border guards are shooting anyone who tries to cross, no exceptions. He realizes too late he's been scammed. There's no path left to protect the one person he came here for. The only move left is to go back and actually do the job he turned down, protect Munju, and stop this war before it starts. He calls Ethan, his contact at Valkyrie, and accepts the contract for real this time. Munju, meanwhile, goes to negotiate with her mother-in-law directly. She offers Oxen the entire inheritance, overseas assets included, in exchange for 2 things. Yunsang drops out of the race and leaves the country within 24 hours, and Miji, Munju's assistant, who Junsang has been using as leverage, gets released. She's already dug up what she needs. A fatal hit-and-run Junsang covered up years ago by framing someone else, and a pattern of abuse no one was supposed to find. Junsang doesn't have a counter-move. He leaves. Oxen takes the deal. She also starts working her own political machine, pressuring the party chairman with a buried family secret to get Munju added as a candidate. A photo from the day of the shooting, Munju, arms spread, throwing herself in front of her husband, goes viral worldwide. The internet starts calling her the Iron Widow within hours. Oxen writes her a tear-jerking speech for the public nomination, with little notes in the margins marking exactly where she should cry. On the day of the announcement, Munju puts the script down. She talks instead about her mother, who worked herself to exhaustion in America to raise her alone, about the Korean flag she kept on her desk the whole time she was abroad, about a man who wanted peace and never got to see it. Her own mother raised her alone in the United States after that, working years at a nail salon to keep them afloat. Munju kept a Korean flag on her desk the entire time. She never stopped thinking of Korea as home, even after being told never to come back to it. A lawyer named Jose Kim tracks her down not long after, Korean-Argentine, specializing in real estate. Years earlier, Junik had hired him to quietly buy land in Argentina worth 2 trillion won through a shell company, supposedly for a private estate. Jose Kim mentions, almost in passing, that someone using the name Stella handled part of those assets too. Munju has never heard that name in her life. She agrees to pay him for the transaction history. It's the first real thread back to whoever's funding all of this. During the speech tour, she takes a train to a rally. Sanho is on a rooftop nearby with a sniper rifle, Not aimed at her, aimed at anyone who might be aimed at her, when he learns a bomb technician got off that exact train minutes earlier. He radios her bodyguard, Chang-hae. Do not let her sit down. The warning arrives too late. She's already in the seat. There's a pressure-triggered bomb underneath it. If she stands up, it goes off. Sanho drives to the next station like the rules don't apply to him. He finds the device, wired to a second bomb in the seat ahead of her. He asks her, almost casually while he's working, what she'll do if she makes it out alive. She says she'll have a cold beer. To disarm it without triggering the pressure release, they have to switch seats without either one standing up first, sliding past each other inch by inch, holding their breath the entire time. He ends up on the bomb. She ends up off it. It detonates after they've cleared the area. He walks away with minor injuries. That night, instead of staying hidden, she goes back out and finishes the speech in public. A political career is born out of a bomb threat, the kind of story that, in any other version of events, would have ended her campaign before it started. Not long after, her convoy gets caught in traffic on the way back from another rally. Sanho spots a man with a distinctive neck tattoo standing among the crowd watching the cars, a mark linking him to a Gurkha-trained mercenary outfit, some of the most ruthless contract soldiers in the world. He tells the driver to turn around. There's no time. A truck slams into the side of their car and shoves it straight toward a stalled vehicle ahead. Sanho wrenches the wheel and just barely avoids the collision. The man with the tattoo triggers a remote detonator and the truck explodes behind them. Nobody in the car is seriously hurt, but it's close enough that Sanho pulls Munju out through an underground rail tunnel on foot, making her power off her phone so she can't be tracked, while her own security team scrambles to figure out where she's disappeared to. Sanho moves her into a secure house he picked himself. He won't let her keep a photo by the bed. Too easy to hide a tracking device behind a frame. He won't let her open a window. Snipers don't care about bulletproof film. She tells him guns are illegal here. This isn't America. He tells her assassins don't read the law and that he's already carrying one. He insists on the room next to hers. Anything farther costs 2 extra seconds of response time, which is exactly long enough for 6 bullets. She stops arguing. They start running together before dawn. The one part of the day, she admits, where her head finally goes quiet. She tells him plainly, no matter how many times he saves her life, she's never going to fully trust him. He says that's fine. He'll keep doing the job anyway. She gives him the necklace she's worn since the funeral. She doesn't mention, because she doesn't think it matters anymore, that she had it modified weeks earlier with a hidden recorder to keep tabs on him herself. Every word spoken near that necklace has been quietly syncing to a cloud server ever since. Chang-hae, Junek's old aide, finds a second secret phone hidden in his car. Whatever's on it changes his expression completely. He drives off without telling anyone. Miji follows him and crashes after a truck loses a load of steel bars across the road. Before he loses consciousness, he manages one sentence for Munju. Your husband, he really was a spy. A message arrives on that same secret phone not long after. An address, a door code, a photo of a necklace Munju recognizes immediately. She goes with Sanho. Inside is a normal house, family photos on the wall. Junik, a woman, a young boy. The woman introduces herself as Gang Hana. The boy Yang is 9. Junik visited once or twice a week. Hana already has a DNA test in hand and tells Munju, without flinching, that she's about to make this public and claim what's owed to her son. Munju throws her own necklace into the street and walks away from that house, unable to keep her hands steady. Sanho takes her somewhere quiet afterward and teaches her to shoot, her first time holding a gun in her life. Not long after, Hana walks into a police station surrounded by reporters and makes it official on camera. She's the second wife, she has a son, and she's going to prove Munju had something to do with Junik's death. She also admits in front of everyone that she's the one who leaked the private recording of Munju and Sanho. Yoo Eun-hak watches the broadcast with interest. So does Oxen, from her own living room, calm and pleased, telling her staff to track every piece of media coverage and pull every legal angle available. In the days that follow, she goes back to see the boy alone, without the resentment she walked in with the first time. He shows her a drawing, a deer, the kind that, according to him, can take down a lion if it has to protect its family. She doesn't ask who he means. Watching him for a moment, She lets herself imagine what it would have felt like to be the one raising Junik's child instead of finding out about it secondhand. She goes back to Oxen, tears up their original deal, and threatens to release years of evidence: tax fraud, illegal dealings, the kind of paper trail that ends careers, unless Hana is silenced for good. Oxen agrees. Around the same time, Munju has her team quietly dig into Sanho's actual record. What comes back reads less like a liability and more like a resume built for exactly this job. A Dubai billionaire's daughter pulled out of a terrorist attack without a scratch, a job in Paris in 2008 where every other target connected to the attack died except his. Every contract he's taken, he's finished clean. None of it tells her who he really is. It just tells her he's never failed. What she doesn't find out yet is that Changhae has already been bought. Oxen handed him an expensive watch in exchange for keeping tabs on Munju and reporting everything back, a debt that will surface much later, once Changhae's own guilt catches up with him. Professor Imujin, Munju's old political mentor, warns her the war is closer than anyone's saying. American reinforcements are already moving toward the peninsula. Soon after, he's beaten in the street by young anti-reunification extremists who call him a northern agent. From his hospital bed, he gives her 3 signs to watch for: the destruction of North Korea's underground bunkers, an American strategic nuclear submarine moving toward the peninsula, and the evacuation of American civilians from the south, with one final tell. If a Frank Sinatra Christmas song starts playing on American military radio, airstrikes follow within 12 hours. At a public fireworks festival, Munju tells the crowd, live, that war could start before sunrise. She puts Anderson Miller on a video call in front of thousands of people. He confirms it on record. The only proof of that submarine's existence is the word of 3 defectors, and one of them has already admitted he was ordered to lie. A sniper has standing orders to kill her the second the first firework goes off. Sanho gets her onto a boat. A bullet grazes her arm anyway. He stitches it himself in a cabin with no anesthesia. That night, she tells him about the baby she lost, a son she'd already decided to call Peach because of what she craved the whole pregnancy. When the radio finally plays the Sinatra song that means a war is 12 hours out, they stop talking about the war entirely. By morning, the most private conversation either of them has ever had is leaked online. The necklace did exactly what she built it to do, except it caught her too. Sanho tears the house apart looking for a bug and finds nothing because the device was never in the house. It was around his own neck the whole time, a gift from the one person he thought he was protecting. Changhae's own investigation turns up a different wiretap entirely, hidden in an outlet at Munju's old house. It points to Junsong, not Sanho. Sanho confronts Ethan, convinced he sold information to whoever's running this. Before that conversation finishes, agents from the National Intelligence Service arrive and arrest him for espionage. Their theory: his real employer is Kim Han-sang, the leader of North Korea, payments routed through a shell bank in Macau. The accusation isn't just that he's a spy, it's that getting close to Munju, all of it, was the assignment from day one. She hears every word of it through the necklace. The same device she planted to catch him out has just handed her exactly what she was afraid of finding. She runs into the forest, certain now that she's been played from the start. While Sanho is in custody, Yoon-hak leans in and tells him, almost as an afterthought, that his grandmother died 2 days ago. It lands exactly the way it's meant to. There's nothing he can do about it from inside a cell, and no time to grieve it either. He just has to sit with it. That's when a message lands on Junik's old secret phone. The submarine is real. Video attached. A meeting point at a port follows. Sanho breaks out of custody and goes looking for her. By the time he catches up, she's already at Professor Imujin's house, asking him to sign a book as a goodbye gift, and noticing, for the first time, that the paper matches a strange business card she found inside a Bible months ago. She dials the number on the card. His phone rings. He doesn't deny anything. His real name is Do Jin. He's the secretary of the intelligence agency, a career spy hunter, and Junik was his best creation, an asset built from nothing. Munju, without realizing it, was the instrument used to build him. Her own father, Seo Hong-sik, was arrested in 1983, accused of espionage in Germany, tortured and killed in prison. which is why her mother fled to America and told her never to come back. Your father, Ji-hyun tells her, was framed by me too. The plan was simple. Arrest her at the port. Let the country believe the traitor's daughter came back to take her revenge. Let that anger push the country into war. Sanho gets there before Ji-hyun can finish it. He forces him to call it off and redirect the trap. Munju ties Ji-hyun to a chair. The door opens. It's Oxen, Hana standing beside her, both armed. Munju, who's already set up a hidden camera with Changhae watching, asks the question directly. Did you kill your son? Oxen doesn't deny that either. She says Junik was never her biological child, taken in, raised as her own, and that he turned against her the moment he found out what she was hiding. She orders Hana to shoot Munju. Hana turns the gun on Oxen instead. She's been waiting for this exact moment. Before she can fire, Yoo Eun-hak's men breach the room. Smoke, gunfire, no clear lines anymore. Sanho cuts through the chaos, grabs Munju, breaks a window, and jumps with her into the water below, already bleeding from a gunshot wound he hasn't mentioned. Ji-hyun doesn't make it much longer. In custody, eating in his cell, he collapses, poisoned the exact same way as Father Inbo, the exact same way as the sergeant who pulled the trigger in the church. Investigator Yoo Eun-hak starts to suspect the real architect of all of this was never Junsang and was never Sanho. It was Oxen the whole time, and her shipping company's delivery records to both North Korea and the US start to back that up. Munju and Sanho dig further into the equipment purchases, metal plating, sensors, submarine components, all bought under the name Stella Young, spread across multiple countries, sometimes at the exact same time. One person can't be in two places. That means there's more than one Stella Young. Sanho confronts Hana first, certain she's one of them. She panics and nearly swallows a poison pill before he stops her. She's not the real one. She's working for someone else. The real Stella Young is Oxen. Abandoned as a child near a US military base after her own mother left her behind for an American soldier, she grew into a CIA contractor, then an international arms dealer, and finally the architect of a nuclear submarine, built quietly over years with one buyer in mind, the Kingdom of Edessa, now openly threatening to strike the United States. Money was never really the point. Her plan was to let the war happen, stay invisible the entire time, and then step forward afterward as the one who helped broker peace, recognized, untouchable, more powerful than anyone who'd spent their whole career playing by the rules she'd spent her life despising. Yunsang, who spent his exile gathering proof against his own mother, comes back with a real arrest warrant. Oxen, barricaded on her own ship, doesn't surrender. Her private security opens fire on the agents sent after her. In the fight, Yunsang is shot protecting Munju and hands her a card with direct contact to Kim Han-sung, the only move left to stop the launch. While the search continues, Sanho hides Hana and her son in a church basement, away from Oxen's men who don't want the boy back out of love. They want him back because as Junik's legal heir, he's leverage worth a fortune. Munju, despite everything she feels about Hana, refuses to let a child become a bargaining chip and helps get them both out of the country. It's around this point that she finally finds the urn holding the ashes of the baby she lost, hidden by Junik in a temple under the one code word that only the two of them ever used: peaches. Inside the urn, a USB drive and a letter, Junik apologizing for Hana and Ensong, admitting he'd found out what his mother really was, warning Munju that she's dangerous. Cross-referenced with what Jose Kim already pulled from the Argentina accounts, it's the last piece that ties everything directly back to Oxen. Munju and Sanho reach Kim Han-sung in time. Once he understands Oxen lied to him too, he agrees to cancel the delivery. The king of Edessa, confronted separately, hands over the cancellation code for the launch system. Cornered, Oxen opens the briefcase meant to fire the missiles herself. Sanho shoots it out of her hands before she can. She tells them what they didn't know. It's wired to a dead man's switch. If she dies, the system fires automatically, unless someone enters a cancellation code, which she throws into the sea before putting a bullet in her own head. The code from the king of Edessa turns out to be identical to the one on her device. It's enough. The launch shuts down in time anyway. There's one more bomb. Pressure triggered, planted by Oxen before she died, sitting directly under Sanho's feet. He locks Munju out of the room and tells her to clear the ship, and to trust him one more time. She refuses, then doesn't get a choice. She's pulled onto a lifeboat against her will. His voice comes over the radio one last time, telling her to keep moving forward and not look back. The ship goes up. She watches it from the boat without saying anything. In the days after, in front of her own party's ethics committee, she's asked directly about her relationship with Sanho. She doesn't deny it. She tells them flatly that he has more dignity than anyone sitting in that room. It costs her, combined with the news about her father, her own party turns on her and pushes her to withdraw. None of this, it turns out, was ever sanctioned by President Choi Kyung-sin herself. Her own assistant had been running a side operation the whole time, feeding the press, pressuring the party, trying to have Moonju quietly buried, without her knowledge and partly on Oxen's behalf. When Choi finds out, she has the assistant arrested and stripped of his position. She almost does withdraw. She tells the people closest to her that she got what she came for, the truth about who killed her husband and why. Miji and Changhae push back, certain the public hasn't turned on her the way the party has. President Choi Kyung-sin, on her way out of office, tells her the same thing. She's the only one left who can actually carry the reunification project forward. Moonju travels to the US not long after, invited to be recognized for helping prevent the war. She runs into Anderson Miller again, who thanks her before going to meet with the American president himself. She eventually announces her candidacy for the 22nd presidential election of South Korea in front of a crowd large enough to make the decision permanent. Somewhere in the Gobi Desert, the place Sanho once told her about, where he lived for 2 years after defecting from the north, he's alive. He looks up at the sky and finds the North Star. It's the name she used for him the entire time she knew him, the one fixed point she navigated her whole life by, whether she ever said it out loud or not. That was Tempest. If you enjoy stories that dig into the uncomfortable parts of the human psyche and challenge the way you watch the screen, subscribe. I'll see you in the next immersion.